Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam srijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam srijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
Samsara Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vamsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Om Hari Om. Very good. Welcome everyone. Namaste. As always, it is my pleasure to be here with you for our weekly live stream. As people know, this is presented to you by an actual movement, a real movement called the International Sanatana Dharma Society. It is a religious movement, it is a spiritual movement, it is a philosophical movement, it is a movement that seeks to re-establish Dharma, natural law within this world, something that has not been instantiated really for quite a long time, actually. Indeed, as time has gone on within the context of the Kali Yuga, human society has veered further and further and further away from natural law, from Dharma. And it is our hope, via the vehicle of this movement, known as the ISDS, that we will re-establish Dharma in this world in our lifetime. And indeed, our goal is certainly to help the myriad individuals who are out there in the world today who wish to truly know truth and to live truth in such a way that they themselves become walking manifestations of truth. But in addition, on the larger scale, our goal is to re-establish dharmic civilization upon this earth, and indeed to usher in a golden age. That is what our movement is all about. We are a movement, and indeed, in addition to our movement, we also happen to have a YouTube channel and a live stream that we do every Sunday. This is a small part of actually what we do. But it's an important part because this is a way that we can reach out to people. We started this, as people know, during the beginning of the COVID crisis. You know, we had our local congregation here. We had various groups throughout the world, both in real life and online. But when COVID hit, I very quickly understood that, oh, there were many people, even in America, but especially outside of America, in Australia and large parts of Asia, of Europe, etc., Canada, where people felt very isolated due to totalitarian sort of strictures that occurred at that time, which never should have. Many people felt trapped in their homes. So that's when we started the live stream, was with the idea that we wanted to share our Sunday service that we do every Sunday anyway with people who are out there in the world. Well, it's been over 5 years now that we've been doing this. And it is our pleasure to continue, and we will continue for as long as we are allowed to. So with that, again, welcome to all of you who are here. And what we're going to be doing today is continuing with something that we have been doing for several weeks now. As people know, sometimes I'll do a standalone talk, usually quoting or commenting upon a Vedic scripture, not always, but usually I will comment on a Vedic verse, several verses, but sometimes we do an entire series where and we'll go through that for multiple weeks, or a passage or something like this. Well, right now we are doing what is called the Purusha Sukta. And this is one of the most important passages, maybe the most important passage in Rig Veda. Rig Veda being, as people know, one of the most well-known and important of the Vedic scriptures. And this is one section of that much larger scripture called Rig Veda. And this is very specifically the 10th mandala. There are 10 what are called mandalas. And this is the 90th chapter. And in these 24 verses, what is being discussed is something that is extremely esoteric, quote unquote. That's a very modern word that, of course, like so many modern terminology that tries to explain spiritual things, of course, it's been abused very much. Esoteric. Well, this is esoteric in the sense that it is difficult for the common individual to understand, and really you need quote-unquote inside information in order to fully understand what is being said in these, what are 24 verses of what's called the Purusha Sukta section of Rig Veda. So, indeed, there have been commentaries in the past, most of them radically wrong, radically not even touching upon the strict and traditional and authentic and orthodox Vedic tradition. They're made up, they're New Age, they're Neo-Hindu, etc., etc. They're modern concoctions. But what we have been doing has been to explain these verses, and again, in a very orthodox way, meaning in accordance with the teachings of the actual gurus, acharyas, rishis of Sanatana Dharma, going back not 100 years, 200 years, people think that's old. No, going back thousands of years. So the commentary that I am providing are commentaries including by Sayana Acharya, who's very, very famous. He's a commentator on Rig Veda, but other traditional, very ancient commentators on Rig Veda. I do not get this from just anywhere, what I have been explaining to you from Purusha Sukta, but indeed it is in accordance with real commentators, individuals who knew Sanskrit the way someone born in America and having gone all the way through a PhD as easily as they speak English. These commentators that I've studied, that's how well they know Sanskrit. So no games here. These are people who knew what they were talking about. And me, it is my humble privilege to just follow in their footsteps and explain this Purusha Sukta to you in the same way that they did thousands of years ago. So with that, we are going to indeed jump into our continuance of the commentary, and we have gone all the way up to verse 8. Now we're going to begin with verse 9, and just to refresh people's memories, because it has been 2 weeks since the last time we discussed this. Last week we celebrated Sri Krishna Janmashtami, as people may remember. But just to remind people, there is a yajna that is taking place at the very beginning of our cosmos. So this was billions of years ago. Just try to conceive of that. And this is not mythology, this is not symbolism, this is not code for something else. No, this occurred billions, with a B, of years ago. We know the entire history of this universe. We're very, very fortunate that we actually, unlike anyone else, we understand the entire history of this universe. And at the very beginning of the universe, when the only beings in existence were Brahma, who is what in Western parlance would be called the demiurge, and then several progenitors who came from Brahma. These were the only beings in existence. And they performed a massive, what was called yajna, or ceremony, in order to bring about the firm establishment of the cosmos. So this is what we're talking about. And now we're going to be talking about an interesting section where what is described is not just the yajna itself and how it took place, but what was the result of this yajna, of this ceremony that took place. So let us begin with verse 9. From that yajna, wherein the Supreme Person was himself the oblation, was produced the birds flying in the air, wild animals of the forest, as also the domesticated animals of the villages were also produced. So indeed, we're beginning to see some of the myriad things, let's say, that were created when this massive yajna took place. Again, what we're talking about here is Vedic cosmology. That is how it is that our specific universe, and really by extension all universes, how they unfold, and especially at the very beginning. So indeed, let me just make this very clear to people who don't understand this and who are unclear about this. We do not subscribe to the Darwinian idea of qualitative evolution. That's a lie, that's a myth. We don't subscribe to this idea that, oh, if you go back 1.5 million, 2 million years ago, rather than humans, you would find glorified monkeys. And then they eventually become humans. If you believe that, well, good luck to you. That's fine. In Sanatana Dharma, we don't believe this. And indeed, no ancient tradition upon the face of the entire earth believed this. This is a very recent idea that is less than 200 years old, a little bit over 150 years old. Even the ideas of which philosophically you can trace back a little bit earlier to Hegel, for example, who talked about evolution in a historical context, etc. Marx as well, who talked about this in terms of class conflict and economic evolution, etc. But other than a few individuals a little bit before Darwin, this idea of qualitative evolution did not exist anywhere on the face of the earth. And I mean anywhere. So this is a very new idea that people now take as a religious dogma. But in Sanatana Dharma, and especially how we practice Sanatana Dharma, which is again authentically, with zero capitulation to modernity, the way that we practice Sanatana Dharma, the idea of qualitative evolution is a silly idea. So indeed, this is how this universe was unfolded. And I should also say, what is going to be discussed over the next several verses obviously doesn't discuss everything, but rather some of the more important items that came into being that human beings very specifically can relate to. Because keep in mind, again, the Vedic scriptures are revealed in a very strategic sort of way. In other words, they are meant to help we as manusya, as human beings, to grow spiritually, to understand what is the nature of our cosmos, the nature of ourselves, the nature of the absolute. That being the case, then, of course, what is being discussed here are those things that especially pertain to humans. So thus, as a result of this yajna, was produced the birds flying in the air. This is something all human beings know. We've all seen birds. It almost doesn't matter what nation you're in, what continent, what region, we all are familiar with birds. And many of us love birds. Let me tell you, I, for one, I love birds. Here in Omaha, Nebraska, we're very, very fortunate, actually, that almost everywhere you see, especially hawks, everywhere. Once in a while, you'll see eagles. I've actually seen eagles flying in the sky. I've seen them on the ground. It's an amazing thing. And I truly love birds. I love seeing them flying. I especially love seeing hawks and eagles. In fact, speaking of which, this morning I actually saw a hawk very high up in the sky, just floating on the wind. And I was commenting to my wife as I was seeing this, that how beautiful this is. It is so amazing how they just float. They seem to float. Once in a while they'll flap their wings and then they just glide and float upon the air like almost mystical beings. So indeed, birds are a beautiful thing. So that is why this is something that's mentioned here. But in addition, wild animals of the forest. So indeed, we know that if you go deeply into the forest, you see a myriad of amazing animals. Some predators, some the opposite, some very gentle animals like deer and rabbits, but in some cases, depending on where you are, which forest you go into, you'll see some large beasts. You'll see bears, you'll see tigers. If you're in the right place, you'll see lions, certainly wolves, coyote, etc. So it's an amazing thing, but this is again something that human beings have as a common experience. That at least at one time, less so now, but certainly at one time, if you went deep into the forest, you would encounter animals, big and small. But then also now dealing very specifically with how human beings encounter the world around them, as also the domesticated animals of the village were also produced, of the villages were also produced. So again, how interesting for those individuals out there who love literature and who read literature, especially important literature like this, like Purusha Sukta of the Rig Veda. If you appreciate literature, you will appreciate these constructs from even a literary perspective, they're beautiful. If you look very carefully, what is being done here? First, what's being discussed are those living beings, those quote-unquote animals who are furthest away, birds. Most people can't touch a bird, they're way up there in the sky. But then a little closer, the animals, the wild animals of the forest. Well, those can get a lot closer to you. In fact, if they're dangerous, you don't want them too close to you. And then finally, domesticated animals, those animals who people actually work with, farmers, etc., horses, equine, people who train horses, etc. So it's just a very beautiful construct, even in how this is written and then, of course, translated. You start with those animals that are very far, closer, and now the ones we can really relate to, horses, cows, etc. So very nice. All these things were produced at the very beginning of this universe. Now with that, let's go on to the next verse, which is verse 10. And this is a rather important verse in that now, rather than simply speaking about animals, far off, closer, very close to us, now it's talking about something radically different. So first let me read this and then I'll comment. From that yajna wherein the Supreme Person was himself the oblation, were born the riks, the devotional hymn mantras of Rig Veda, the samans, the mantras of Samaveda. From that yajna, the meters such as Gayatri were born. From that yajna again, the yujas, that is the Yajurveda, was born. Very beautiful, more beautiful than most people, I think, probably understand. What this is talking about now, of course, is something categorically different, not just animals, but it's talking about that by which we have access to the sacred. That is sacred meter, sacred sound vibration. But first, before we dive into that, let's look at the very first clause that's here. These clauses begin in the same way. And it sounds repetitive, but it actually is done for a reason. There's nothing that is repetitive in the Vedic scriptures that's just done so willy-nilly for no reason. But this verse begins in the same way as the previous verse. From that yajna wherein the Supreme Person was himself the oblation. So again, I don't want to repeat what we spoke about last time because we went very deeply into what precisely it means that God himself served as the core of this ceremony by which now things are created, and that is bringing together, on the one hand, overt materiality, that which is insentient, but then permeated with the Spirit of God. So thus the Purusha, permeating all of that reality and giving it its actual existence, its actual being, God himself being the being of all things. But again, this is why this is repeated again and again, to remind us that, oh yes, these things were created, but they were created because of the presence of God. Oh, this was created, but it was created because of the presence of God. So thus, from God proceeds all things. So with that, let's go through this a little bit. So from that yajna were born the riks, that is the devotional hymn mantras of Rig Veda. I've mentioned this before. Why is Rig Veda called Rig Veda? The reason why it's the case is because the very word rig itself means It means praise. It means a hymn of praise. So thus this entire scripture itself is a scripture that is designed to praise. To praise what? Certainly God, but also all things of importance. If you read the Rig Veda, and if you're capable of understanding it, which are two separate things, what you'll see is that there are several things that are praised devotionally within Rig Veda. They include Dharma itself. They include, again, God, Narayana, Vishnu, Purusha. They include all of the gods and goddesses. That is, all of these much higher beneficent beings. And many other things are also praised. But this is what is being said here, is that these very hymns themselves became materially manifest, thus accessible to human beings as a result of this primordial yajna that occurred. Now let's go on. These samans, the mantras of Samaveda. So there are 4 Vedas altogether. This is a second Veda called the Samaveda. So the samans, that is the actual mantras that are there in this specific Veda, not came into being, but were revealed to humanity at the very beginning of time within this specific Brahmanda or cosmos as a result of this yajna that took place. Now let's go on. From that yajna, the meters, such as the Gayatri meter, were born. Indeed, when we talk about all of the elements that are there in connection to scripture, so when we talk about mantras, when we talk about all the grammatical rules of Devanagari, the language of the gods, which is sometimes also known as Sanskrita, etc., these are all divinely revealed. These are all an absolute science. In fact, science is a word that's almost too lowly to even use for this. But yes, this is something that is revealed. It's something that is done to exactitude, etc. And these things indeed are re-revealed at the beginning of any specific cosmos. This includes the actual meters in which the mantras of all the Vedic scriptures are recited. A person doesn't just say a mantra however you want. And we're talking about strictly speaking. In meditation, that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about strict recitation as a priest of all the mantras and sound vibrations that are meant to produce an actual effect. The way you even say them, pronunciation must be absolutely perfect. Sincerity aside, you must also, if you're sincere, if you're really sincere, then you'll take the time to learn pronunciation. Pronunciation is of importance, but even indeed how you recite a mantra. And then the example given here is, for example, the Gayatri mantra. There are several accepted meters for, and we're just using one example. There are different kinds of mantras, different kinds of meters that correspond with those kinds of mantras. But for example, Gayatri mantra, which is very easy to understand, there are several accepted meters. Now, you can choose to make up your own meter. You can sing it, for example, or make up a song, etc. There's nothing that's offensive about that. But if you are going to be reciting the mantra in a formal way as a priest in order to have a specific effect, then you must do so in accordance with a meter. So, for example, with Gayatri mantra, that is with Gayatri meter, one of the meters that we do, and that I do especially, is Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodhayatam. Now you see, this is one of the accepted meters, and again, it's not the only one. This is what I call yogic meter. That is, it's done slower and it's done for meditation very specifically. So it could be called yogic meter, dhyana meter, or meter for meditation, etc. So these are the meters that are being spoken of. These meters themselves came into being at the very beginning of our created universe. From that yajna, again, the yujas, that is the Veda, was born. So again, this is another one of the Vedas, of the Veda Samhitas. So indeed, all the contents of all 4 Vedas came into being at the beginning of our cosmos, at the very time of cosmogony, of creation. And they're not made up. They didn't evolve. They didn't come about due to speculation and shamanistic witch doctors just experimenting to see what sounded all mystical. No, these were revealed by God. Very good. With that, let us now go on to the next verse. And this is 10th Mandala, chapter 90, verse 11. From that yajna were born the horses, as also animals like donkeys and mules, which have 2 rows of teeth. From that yajna were born the cattle. From that yajna again were born goats and sheep. Very nice. So it's not too much to say about this, just a few things that are of importance actually. So you'll remember with the, not previous verse, but the very first verse that we began with, when the creation of all these various animals were discussed. We went from further away to closer, and the closest being eventually domesticated animals. Well, now this section is going just a little bit deeper into truly domesticated animals, animals that human beings generally and traditionally work very closely with. So what are mentioned here? Horses, in fact, we'll just go through this quickly. Horses and similar sorts of animals, so donkeys, mules, etc. Which, again, if you live in traditional society, no, not 2025, the Bronx, or Queens, or Brooklyn, or South Side of Chicago, etc. No, if you live in a traditional society where 95% of individuals would be raised on farms, again, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, these are animals you would work with all the time and feel very, very close to the point where they were almost like family members. So indeed, equines. Then it goes on. From this were born the cattle, i.e. cows, and everything like cows. Cows, bulls, all sorts of bovine creatures. These also are animals that traditionally, especially the Indo-European people, i.e. those individuals who are truly noble, Arya, the Aryan people, work with very closely. Indeed, there is practically no Arya culture throughout all of history in which working closely together with cows was not important. Indeed, the cow was very central to culture, if you were Arya. And then goats and sheep. These also are domesticated animals that people work very closely with. So with that, now let's go to the next verse. And now it especially starts to become, I think, interesting for people. And we begin to discuss some very, very important concepts. And very specifically, now we're going to see the creation of Varna. And when we say Varna, again, I'll go into this more deeply a little bit later. The term is Varna, not caste. Caste is a meaningless term. It's Portuguese. It doesn't come from Sanskrit. Rather, the term that we find is Varna. And now what is being described is the creation of Varna at the very beginning of our cosmos. So let us now look at verse 11. Now, some questions are raised by the sages. So now there are some questions that are asked. When did the gods decide to mentally offer the Virat Purusha and produce further creation? In how many ways did they do it? What became of his face? What became of his 2 arms? What became of his 2 thighs? And what were produced of the 2 feet? What were the products of the 2 feet? This is a verse that is always interesting because people always point to this verse as the beginning of the so-called caste system. And indeed, whenever you have, especially for the last, approximately less than 100 years, let's say beginning from a little bit before World War II, actually, you began to have Marxist fraudulent professors, academics, scholars, etc., who just ran wild and rampant with speculation about this and the preceding verse. Talking about, of course, the injustice of the caste system. This must have just been made up by the evil Brahmins in order to oppress people, etc., etc. All of this truly worthless Marxist theory, all of which has been disproven again and again and again. So, again, there have been so many misunderstandings about this and the verse to come. So let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, what is being described here? That indeed with the yajna, in which the Purusha serves as the oblation, that is, God himself is the oblation, and the creation comes forth. Well, there are many things that come forth. What is being spoken about now is indeed the Varna system. So indeed, these are sages who are asking, interestingly, Vishnu himself, God himself. That's not stated here, but it's the tradition that everyone just knows that. So now these are some of the questions. When the gods decided to mentally do this yajna, offer the Virat Purusha, and produce further creation, in how many ways did they do it? So what's being asked about is, quite literally, how was this done? Now, this is where it becomes interesting. What became of his face? Because indeed, Purusha, what is the literal translation of Purusha? People here. Person. Not thing, not cosmic goo floating in the sky, not the force like in Star Trek. Person is the literal translation. Being a person, of course, what does that mean? This means that that person has form, that God has form. No, not yucky form like you. You have yucky form. Not yucky form, meaning a physical body that decomposes and smells bad, etc., etc. We're not talking about physical body. God has form, i.e., God has locus of being, to understand this truly philosophically. This is what's meant by form. That is, God is identifiable. To say that God is not identifiable is to say that God doesn't exist. Let me repeat this. For those of my students out there who have PhDs in philosophy, which is quite a few of them. If God does not have form, that means God does not exist. Now, why is this the case? If God does not have a locus of being, i.e., if God cannot be identified as God, then God is a being that cannot be located, that cannot be understood, juxtaposed to God versus that which is not God, thus being able to truly understand God. So in other words, without God having locus of being, we could never point to God. We could never even discuss God. All possibility of verbiage connected to God would cease to be if God did not have a locus of being and thus identity. So this is why it's very important that, again, throughout the Purusha Sukta, not just any word is used for the Supreme. It's amazing. Not Brahman, not even Narayana is used. As Vaishnavas, you would think we would find that interesting. Philosophically, it's understood why the term Purusha is used. It's pointing to the personhood of God, and for very specific reasons. And here's yet another instance in which this is something of great importance, the personhood of God. What became of his face? In other words, understanding the transcendental form of the Supreme Absolute. What became of the quote-unquote face of that Supreme upon doing this yajna? What became of his arms? What became of his thighs? And what became of his feet? Now, why are these four things mentioned? They're not just mentioned willy-nilly. Again, I've said this again and again. Absolutely nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, take those words seriously, in any of the Vedic scriptures is just said for no reason, or just for fun, or just because the person writing a specific scripture got bored or wanted to rhyme something. Roses are red, violets are blue. Oh, what should I do now? Those are not the rishis. Everything is done on purpose. Why these four items? Well, we're going to see in the next verse. These four items of the personhood of God correspond with the four Varnas. Now let's go on to the very next verse. And this is verse 12. From his face came the Brahmanas, the priestly class. From his 2 arms came the Rajanya, the Kshatriyas, the warrior class. From his 2 thighs came the Vaishyas, that is, the merchants and the farmers. From his 2 feet came the Shudras, or the laborers, the skilled laborers, etc. So how interesting. Now we see why these 4 items of the Purusha were very specifically mentioned. They were not just mentioned, again, because the writer got bored or something like this, or just decided, oh, what should I choose? Should I choose the left ear? No. These correspond with the 4 Varnas. Now let's talk about how they correspond with the 4 Varnas. So let's go through this. First of all, from his face, from his mouth, sometimes it's translated as mouth, came the Brahmanas. Now, why is this the case? The Brahmanas, interestingly, first of all, let's back up. Who are the Brahmanas? In fact, let's back up on the backup. Now I'm going to talk very briefly, as I do many times, about the difference between caste as it exists today versus Varna. As I said, I believe last time in answering a person's question, this is how we are to understand this. It's not that a person is quote-unquote born a Brahmin and therefore they are a priest or they are sattvic or they're an intellectual, etc. It's the other way around. When you find a human being who it is their natural proclivity, i.e. their psychophysical nature such that they, among all humans, are like a living angel. That is, they are good, they are moral, they are peaceful, they are content. Their natural predilections tend toward being spiritual, being yogic, being priestly, being an intellectual, being a philosopher, etc. When, as you traverse this world, you find such an individual, that's called a Brahmana. So this is how we are to see it. Not just that people who are born Brahmins have to somehow cultivate all those qualities I just spoke about. No, if you're not born with those qualities, that's not what you are. You're not a Brahmana. Rather the other way around. If you inherently have no choice, but this is who you are and this is how you express yourself, there is a name for you. You are a Brahmana. Now, with that understanding, why is it said that the face of the Purusha, it's from the face that the Brahmanas came? Well, the Brahmanas serve, interestingly, traditionally, and this is mentioned in many other Vedic scriptures besides Rig Veda, the Brahmanas are the mouth of God. They are seen as the mouth of God. Now, what does this mean? It is from the mouth of the Brahmanas, and I mean a real Brahmana. Again, not some caste Brahmin living in Mumbai who, likes to duck into McDonald's and have a Big Mac once in a while. No, we're talking about the real thing. We're talking about someone who was truly, inherently a Brahmana in every way. When you have such an individual who studies the Veda every day, who recites the mantras every day, what does that person become? They become, in a way, a living representation of the Veda. They become an individual who, they become the Veda, they become the book. Such that when they utter words, they are uttering truth. So this being the case, this is why they correspond to the face or the mouth of God. Because it's from the true Brahmanas that you can hear the truth. Very good. Let's go on. From his 2 arms came the Rajanya, the Kshatriyas, the warrior class. Well, is this surprising? It's not surprising at all. If you look at a human person, at the living entity in the form of a human, how do they defend themselves? Well, of course, there are several ways, but primarily, let's not play games. A person could say, well, they could butt people with their heads. Oh, sure, that's not how most people defend themselves, however. If you're about to be attacked, you're not going to go after your attacker with your head. You use your arms. You use your arms, you use your fists, etc. That's how you fight. Well, it is from the very arms of God himself that now this second class is born, and that is Rajanya, the Kshatriyas, the warriors. It is from the arms of God that we have defense, that we have protection. So again, what is a Kshatriya? I have spoken about this quite a few times, actually. But what precisely is a kshatriya? What is a warrior? It is an individual who is a martial protector, a martial guardian of Sanatana Dharma, of truth, of the natural way. The Brahmana also is a guardian, but he's a guardian in the priestly sense, via priestcraft, philosophy, etc. So the Brahmana is also a guardian of Vedic culture, but the Kshatriya is a martial guardian. In other words, he'll literally use his sword to defend Dharma. Now let's go on. From his two thighs come the Vaishyas. And what is a Vaishya? A merchant, a farmer. These are what the Vaishyas are. More, a Vaishya is a producer, an individual who produces wealth in whatever form. So indeed, he can be a merchant, what today we would call a business person, but also a farmer. How interesting that these are the two sorts of people who are considered to be Vaishyas. And why? They produce wealth. Person today, of course, not having a very great fund of knowledge or even ancestral memory, might ask, well, a farmer, how does a farmer produce wealth? Food is wealth. Food is more important wealth than any product you could buy at Walmart or Target or any other store you can think of, Amazon. Food is real wealth. Why? Lose your iPhone, you'll still live. Maybe you'll go into mourning, but you'll live. Be deprived of food, you're not going to live. Food is the greatest of wealth, and it's always been recognized as such. And it's for this reason that within Sanatana Dharma, and indeed all traditional societies, the farmer is considered someone who is worthy of great respect. And this is why historically the majority of people were farmers. The majority of individuals, certainly in ancient times, but even let's say in America up until, roughly 100 years ago, something like that, the majority of individuals and families were farmers. And they were worthy of respect because they created true wealth, the wealth of the land. The wealth of the land. So indeed, these are the Vaishyas, and they come from the thighs. Why the thighs? Because it is the thighs that hold up the rest of the important things of the body. That is, everything above the thighs. So everything above the thighs are considered to be the things of the body that are of true importance. You see, you can lose your legs from the thighs down, you'll live. You won't be happy, but you'll live. You can live, a full life. Lose anything above that, you'll die. Lose, your belly, lose your head, lose your heart, etc., you'll die. So it is the thighs that uphold everything else, that uphold the Kshatriyas, that uphold the Brahmanas, etc. So those are the Vaishyas. Without the wealth produced by the Vaishyas, and specifically in the form of produce, then everything else will collapse. And then finally, the Shudras. Who are the Shudras? Shudras are individuals who love to work with their hands, not with their head. And I don't mean this in a bad way at all. Some fools think that this is a bad thing. It's not. This is simply the way of human beings. There are some human beings who this is what they are inherently. They don't strive to be intellectuals. They don't really want to use merely the intellect in order to get by in life. Rather, they love to work with their hands. These are skilled laborers, skilled craftsmen, etc. And they want to be carpenters, they want to build buildings. They want to be plumbers in today's context. They want to be people who work with their hands. Those are what are considered the Shudras. So if there is an individual who he finds that just inherently, given a choice, would he rather read a book? Would he rather try to figure out some kind of strategy to make money? Or would he rather just work on a car? His choice, his love is that he wants to work on a car. That is what is considered to be a Shudra, so laborers. And laborers are considered to be the 2 feet. Why is this the case? Well, again, because of support, because it is the feet that indeed upholds the rest of the body, including even the thighs, including even the Vaishyas. And this is something that is crucial to always keep in mind. Again, it's so sad that in recent centuries, people understand the hierarchical nature of the Varna system, that, indeed, there is a qualitative difference between all these Varnas. But sometimes people will use this hierarchical structure to try to denigrate, for example, the Shudras, the laborers, and say, those are the people who, they're dummies, they're of no importance, they just what? They just do every single thing in society to keep society going. You know, for elitist sort of individuals who are out there, who just, you know, are the, as I call them, urban effetes, who live in a condo in upper Manhattan, on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, etc. And, you know, they just use what modicum of intelligence they are in order to make money. And when they think of a plumber, when they think of a carpenter, when they think of someone who's going to come to their home to do maintenance or repairs or something like that, they'll kind of, at least internally, kind of look down their nose at them, you know. But imagine if all these people, the laborers, ceased to exist. All those urban effetes would starve in their own filth. In their very nice condos on the Upper East Side and West Side of Manhattan. But they would starve to death in their own filth if it were not for the workers, for the laborers. So indeed, all four of these Varnas are of great importance, and we are to respect them all. We are to understand the difference between them, and there is indeed a hierarchical difference, but it's also a symbiotic relationship that is there, in which we must have all of these. Indeed, any society in which you do not have all of these is a society that is doomed to failure, and more. Any society in which one of these is missing, oh yes, they are doomed to destruction. They are doomed to destruction. So we have to have all four of these Varnas. They're all of great importance. So we are to respect the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras, all of the above. Because again, for you who are a so-called caste Brahmin, if you didn't have Shudras in your life, you would die. You would die if you didn't have people to repair the streets, to fix your air conditioner once it breaks down, to work in the factories, to provide you with the furniture you have, who built the very structure, the building that you're living in, the house, the apartment complex, the condo complex. It was Shudras who created all that. So we are to respect all the Varnas, while at the same time recognizing the qualitative difference between them. Good. Very good. Well, that ends our commentary on these verses. So with that, for a short time, because we are a little bit past the time that we usually go, I would like to see if there are any questions that people have. Any sincere questions, any honest questions. If you don't ask an honest question, you're not going to get an answer of any sort whatsoever. But indeed, if you have any good philosophical questions that you would like to ask about Sanatana Dharma, either the verses we discussed today or any aspect of this Vedic tradition, please feel free to ask your questions at this point. And as I always say, there is indeed, I recognize about 30 seconds, 20 seconds, something like that delay, so it'll take a short time for the questions to start streaming in. And in the meantime, for anyone here, does anyone have any questions here whatsoever about anything that we've discussed? Please feel free. And I'll wait for the time delay and the questions to come in. Very good. I see here what I believe is going to be probably maybe a two-part question. Very good. At least I'll start by answering the first question. I don't see the totality of the second one yet, but I'm sure it's going to appear. So it is Namaste Shri Acharyaji. This is the first question. If Rama is of the solar dynasty and Krishna of the lunar dynasty, does this imply that Rama is superior to Krishna? No. Not in any way whatsoever. In fact, yes, you're smiling, right? Yes, no. For those of us who understand what is the nature of these dynasties, no, it's not a matter of superior or inferior. Indeed, let me say this very clearly. Even when it comes to the idea of hierarchy in and of itself, and I doubt if there's anyone who understands the philosophical nature of hierarchy more than me right now on the planet. When it comes to the idea of hierarchy, inferior and superior, interestingly, do not always fit in trying to understand what is the nature of hierarchy. Oh, sometimes they do, but not always. And in this specific case, very specifically, no, it does not mean that Rama is superior to Krishna, and that for several reasons. First of all, both of these dynasties are considered to be purely majestic and royal. They are coming from the gods, and not just the gods, but gods who themselves are celestial divinities. That being the case, they are both considered to be legitimate. The second thing is Rama and Krishna are both avatars of Narayana. There is no question of superior or inferior when it comes to one aspect of God versus another. It's a matter truly of different. And I'm sorry to seem to repeat something that woke people say today, oh, there's no superior, inferior, it's just different. No, we don't mean this in a woke sense. What we mean this in is an ontological sense, i.e., God is God is God is God. Vishnu Tattva is the same. Indeed, this is one of the principles of what is called Vishnu Tattva, that is divine ontology, is that when speaking about God, it is Ekam, God is one being, even when he comes in various avatars and with the diversity contained therein, with the multiplicity of everything from one avatar to another, differences in how they look, differences in their activities, differences in emphasis, etc., etc. It's all Vishnu Tattva. So there's no question of superior, inferior when it comes to God versus God versus God. So I hope that answers the question. And now looking at your second question, this may be the totality of your question. I didn't see a period after, so I was assuming that maybe there was more to come, but maybe this is the full question. How can one give offerings using fire? All right, well, if that is your question, then that is called yajna. That is fire ceremony, fire sacrifice. And indeed, if you yourself wish to learn how to do fire sacrifice, oh, there are ways, even online, where you can learn this. There are Vedic temples. I don't know where you preside right now, where you're living, but let's say if you're even close to a somewhat larger city somewhere in the Western world, given your name, I assume that's the case, either in America or Europe. Oh, you can find Hindu temples where, for example, if you go and you ask in a very sincere way and you show that you are someone who's following Sanatana Dharma, the priests there will show you how to at least begin by performing small yajnas, small fire ceremonies. But indeed, they're not going to do this if you're just curious, or if you go to a Hindu priest and say, oh, yes, I'm not really Hindu, I practice this, and this, but I'd like to incorporate this into my life. Probably they won't give you the time of day. If you show, however, that you're a serious follower of Sanatana Dharma, a Hindu priest can show you how to do at least a very simple yajna for yourself, for your family, etc. But again, a lot of this is just available online as well. But yes, you can begin to do yajna at any point. Very good. Namaste, Acharya-ji. This is another good question. Are these Varnas literally emanating from the Purusha, or is this metaphorical? Both, yes. Both, actually. Both. It's literally the case. So this occurrence that happened at the very beginning of creation, which was the cosmogony, that is how the world came into being, how this universe came into being, this literally happened. There was an actual yajna that took place. And it's literally the case that these various aspects of the Purusha became the Varnas. It's also to be understood secondarily, metaphorically, in that, as we did with this commentary, looking at the correspondence between one aspect of the Purusha and then a specific Varna, there is a lot that can be learned there as well. So it's both. It's both. And in that order, actually, that it's literal and metaphorical. Very nice. Very good. Here is another good question that I can answer pretty quickly, actually, because it has to do with Vedic physics, very specifically. Vaisheshika, Vedic physics. Good evening, Sri Acharya. Please, can you comment on the idea that the physical rules that govern this universe are the same across all universes? First of all, yes, I will confirm that because this is said in the Vedic scriptures. Indeed, I spoke about this pretty in depth. Maybe it was the second installment of these talks on the Purusha Sukta. I can't quite remember. But I did speak about how the principles of cosmogony as well as physics exist cross-universe. So not just this specific universe, but in accordance with the Vedic scriptures, what is described here in the Purusha Sukta occurs with every universe, and it's how the universes come into being. And more, the physical principles that apply to our universe apply to all of the universes. So indeed, this is something that's universal. That's at least one thing that modern scientists got right. They got very little else right when it came to cosmogony and cosmology. Very little. But this is one thing that they are correct about, that the principles of physics are indeed not just universal, i.e. with not just within our specific universe or Brahmanda, but universe to universe to universe. And for those who don't know, who may be new to Sanatana Dharma, indeed we believe in multiple universes, that there are an almost infinite number of universes. Not in the silly science fiction Star Trek sort of idea that, oh, there's another one of you and another one of you, another one of you doing different things at different universes. No, that's childish science fiction. But there are multiple universes where different things with different people are going on in accordance with their free will and their karma. So there is an Acharyaji in this universe sitting in this seat speaking to you right now. This is the only universe and the only place, the only locus in which I exist as an Atman. There's not another one of me in another universe riding a horse right now, another universe cooking some pasta right now. No, that's Star Trek. That's silly. But we do believe in multiple universes. But I hope that answers your question. Nice. Here's another very nice question, actually. And it is, Namaste Acharyaji. Please accept my obeisances, and likewise. As one makes progress in devotional service, may they find that Brahminical qualities shine through as purification occurs. Yes. In fact, not only yes, but let me explain why this is the case, and why what you're saying especially applies to the Kali Yuga. Well, we are living in the most unreal of ages, in the most unnatural of ages, in the most impure of ages, right now, not just in the Kali Yuga, but in 2025, which is the worst era that has existed for the totality of all four yugas thus far. This being the case, whereas in a good yuga, that is in a real society, a person would have a very good inkling of what their psychophysical nature was very early on. In other words, as a child, it would be known, oh, this is a Brahmana, oh, this is a Kshatriya, etc. Today, much of one's inherent psychophysical nature, and what is indeed the nature of that, is covered up by gunk. That should not be there. It's not natural. We live in the most unnatural of times. And when I say unnatural, certainly I mean as far as the physical aspects, all the pollutants that are everywhere around us, etc. But not just that. The degeneracy itself is something that's unnatural and that conceals from us who and what we truly are, even more so than would have been the case in a better era. That being the case, a person could be in their late 20s and not even have a real inkling of, what is my Varna? Am I actually a Brahmana? I have no idea. But, of course, what is the process by which we reverse this degeneracy, we reverse this pollution, and come to the point of, indeed, self-knowledge? It is indeed, as you said here, devotional service, or practicing spirituality, practicing bhakti, practicing devotion. And as a result of such practice, we come to the point where, indeed, we know ourselves better and better and better. And if we are truly meant to be a Brahmana, it may come out later than it would have in a real society, which we don't have today. It may take longer, but it will come out. It will come out. So I hope that answers your question. Good. This is a good question that I'm not going to answer. This is another one. It's a good question. And as I read your question, please know in advance, it's not that I'm going to not answer your question because it's a bad question. It's a good question. And I'll first let me read, then I'll explain why I'm not going to answer it. Dear Acharyaji, Hare Krishna, could you comment on our current political economic leadership in Washington, D.C. as it relates to respecting and understanding what is the best for the American people? First, let me say I can comment on this in intricate and painful detail beyond anyone on the planet today. And I have, actually, both in written form, but also in various interviews that I have done that exist on other venues that a person just has to search for a little bit and they'll find it. Indeed, I did such an interview yesterday, actually, for almost 2 hours, where I talk about this. But I'm not going to answer the question only because I do my best to keep this live stream focused on Sanatana Dharma as much as possible, not delving into politics. Because why? It's a dangerous thing to do today. And all I mean by dangerous is that, you say the most innocent thing politically, half the population is going to hate you, half is going to love you. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what your quote-unquote opinion is. So that's why I try to avoid politics, at least while doing this live stream. So I would recommend that you look for some of those videos where I do indeed speak in a very straightforward, very unadulterated, very frank and honest sort of way about the current political situation. Search around and you will find those videos. Very good. And let me just see what other questions there are. Very nice question. Again, this is the question having to do with Varna, which is very good because this is to a great extent what we spoke about here. And it is Sri Guru. Namaste Sri Acharyaji. In this Kali Yuga, are the Varnas mixed up in people? Very good question. Very good question. And let me say, for people who are objective observers of human beings, human society, etc., it seems that way, doesn't it? Very, very often. So what is the answer? The answer is that, today more than at any other time, what you find is a lot of mixture and a lot of confusion as far as Varna. This is why you'll find individuals today who they themselves are a little bit confused about, again, what Varna am I? I was just discussing this a short time ago. How, a person, might go for a long time before they even know what their Varna is. And that was not the case during ideal times. During ideal times, when you were a child, you knew what your Varna was. But now, a person could be 30 years old and they're still confused. Am I a Brahmana? Am I a Shudra? I don't know. Well, we also see a lot of mixture where because of this confusion, yes, there are individuals who will do many various sorts of things and they don't come to a conclusion about, what exactly am I? Am I a Brahmana? Am I meant to be someone who is purely spiritual? And quite literally, my career is something that is sattvic, meaning that, I'm maybe a professor, a real professor, not the woke professors of today who are intellectual midgets. No, we're talking about a real professor, let's say a real scholar, a real teacher. Am I meant to be that? Am I meant to be an auto mechanic? Am I meant to join the military and be a kshatriya? I don't know. That's the confusion that there is today, very sadly. So as a result, what we find are many individuals who will kind of do a little bit of each until they finally, hopefully, settle on one thing or another, one career, one thing that they are meant to do. And it's the saddest thing that I've seen this, I'm sure you have as well. There are some people today who, oh my Lord, they'll end up being in their 50s, their 60s, and they still don't settle on something. So yes, this is something that we find quite a bit in the Kali Yuga. So. Very good. This is an interesting question. No one has ever asked me this before, and again, I can answer this pretty quickly. It's Sri Guru. Is there a mini dark age in the golden age? Thank you. No, there is not. No, there is not. There is not. Whether you're speaking about the actual Satya Yuga, that is the actual golden age that existed millions of years ago and that lasted for a very long time. No, there was no mini dark age. And with this 10,000 year golden age that is to come, no, there's no dark age. Rather, what there is what we're experiencing now, that is right now, we're in, the very beginning transition into the golden age. That's why people see what's happening. They are happy about what's happening, but at the same time, everyone's complaining, oh, can this go any faster? Please. It's doing what it is meant to do. That is, it starts off very slowly, but then exponentially, it gets to the point where you cannot deny that we're in the golden age. And then it reaches its crescendo. It stays there for quite some time. And then slowly it starts to recede until finally we're back in the actual Kali Yuga. So this is what occurs. But within that progression of the golden age, there is no mini dark age within it. No, that's not a thing, as they say. Very good. Very good. Let me just ask people before we go on. How are we doing? Are we getting to the point where we should start to wrap up? And yeah, please be honest. Yeah, okay. Why don't we do that? In that case, because we've gone for almost an hour and a half, and there are a lot more questions, and it makes me feel very bad because I've rarely seen so many questions, actually. But we're going to have to stop here, only because we've been going for an hour and a half. And people can probably hear we have, 22 babies who are here, I believe. It sounds like it. And, they're all getting to the point where, they've been wonderful, but it's getting to the point where, they need a little bit of a break and to actually do some other things. So maybe we will stop here. For those individuals for whom I could not get to your questions, let me say what I always say. First of all, I apologize. It's not because your questions were not good. Again, we just ran out of time. Please hold on to your questions. Ask them again next time, and hopefully we will have a chance to get to them. This is the nature of the limiting aspect of time. There's only so much. So again, I apologize that I'm sure some of these questions, I'm sure one of them is like the best question ever asked in the history of our live streams. But what can you do? Time. So again, we will end here. Before I leave you again, let me repeat these things that need to be repeated. Several things. First of all, we indeed have a Discord forum. For people who are not aware of this, it's the Dharma Nation Discord server. And if you would like to continue to further your understanding and practice of Sanatana Dharma in a community of individuals who you can trust, who are real, who are good people, who can give you good guidance, please join our Discord server. And our Discord server is always growing. We have hundreds of devotees who are specifically followers of the ISDS who are on there, who indeed can give you very good answers to your questions. And more, not just answers to your questions. You see, as I always have to say, Sanatana Dharma is not a head game. Everything today is a head game. That's one of the curses of the internet. People think that what it means to be spiritual is to just talk about spirituality. That's kindergarten. What it means to be spiritual is to practice. It means to be a practitioner and to grow personally in spirituality. Well, if that's what you want, please join our Discord server. People can answer your questions, but more, they can help you to grow spiritually. The other thing is, please visit dharmacentral.com. That's our main website. And all of our books are available there. I've written 13 books thus far, and I believe most, if not all of them, are available there. We also have more information about what is Sanatana Dharma. We also have links on there where if you would like to contribute, to give a donation to the International Sanatana Dharma Society, it's something that we would appreciate very much. Again, as I always have to remind people, some people just have a YouTube channel, and that's the main thing that they do. Our YouTube channel, this wonderful Dharma Nation channel, is one tiny aspect of what we do in our mission as a movement to bring Sanatana Dharma to the world. We have many projects that we're doing, and we need your support to continue with these many, many projects that we are working on. So if you would like to donate to the International Sanatana Dharma Society. If you go to dharmacentral.com, you just look on the menu, very easy to find, and you can donate to the ISDS. You can also become a monthly tithing member of the ISDS, which is a tremendous help as well. But again, you can do that on dharmacentral.com. With that, again, we will leave you for now. The next time we get together, we will continue exploring this beautiful, wonderful Purusha Sukta. And with that, everyone, I ask you to please take very good care of yourselves in every way. Namaste. And everyone, such that the gods can hear us, Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Victory to Dharma on our planet, in our cosmos, and may that victory occur now. Evam bhavatu. May it be so. And it is absolutely guaranteed. It is something that nothing can ever stop. Nothing. It shall be so. Dharma will be victorious. And with that, everyone, I leave you once again with these words of Bhagavan Sri Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 66, wherein he says, Ma Shuchaha. Do not fear, for God is protecting his devotees. Everyone, namaste. Namaste to our 59 babies. Everyone take care.